Hey, it's Thursday, so that means at Quilter's Corner, it's a demo day. So I'm going to wait for a few people to join us and see what's going on. The one thing I can tell you is, oh my God, I really miss my hairdresser. I said my dog groomer is mobile, so she's coming by next week to do my dog, and I'm wondering if maybe I can slip in there too, because this is going to be one crazy do by the end of this shelter in place. So demos every Thursday, and I'm going to demonstrate the Creative Grids folded corner clipper tool today. But if anybody has a tool or a technique or something they would like to have demoed, why don't you send us an email or comment on a Facebook post, and I can add that to the lineup. So I see Maria's joined us, and Angela, and Tamara. This is really funny. When Tiffany was doing this yesterday, hey Sherry, I mentioned to somebody, did you used to watch Romper Room? Because all I could think is at the end of Romper Room where she held up her magic mirror and said, I see Bobby and I see, Sissy. And that's what I feel like. Romper Room was sort of the precursor to Facebook Live here. A little punchy today, folks. And they never, Miss whatever her name was in Romper Room, never saw Chrissy, so I was always bummed because she could never see me. But I do see you guys. So Karen's on and Laura. So I'm glad to see you here. I hope you're sewing. I don't know if it started raining yet. I'm usually buried in the office, so I don't even see what the weather's like. And I'm working once again to get more items online. I did add about another 30 batiks yesterday online. I added our bee fabric, what was it? Not Bee Inspired, Be Kind. One of those bee fabrics by Deb Strain for Moda. So those are all online. Those are new online. I'm working on some patterns today. If there's a line of something you want to see online, that's the other thing. I'm the one that's putting things online. So if there's something you're looking for, you think we have in the shop, and you'd like to see it online, let me know, because I'm the one that does it. So, and I'm working as fast as I can, but there's a lot of stuff and a lot of work that goes to putting it online. All right, so we've got a few people here. Once again, I'm demonstrating the Creative Grids folded corner clipper. And I'm going to flip the camera around. Hey, Tiffany. So she's joined us too. Oh, she missed all my intro. She'll never know what I say until she watches it later. My partner in crime over here, Angie's just laughing. So here's the Creative Grids folded corner clipper. Let me get that so you can see it. I tried to move to a spot today where we didn't have all the overhead lights shining. So the folded corner clipper, there you can see it, designed by Susan Nelson. She used to sell this, and then she stopped making it, and Creative Grids took over. So the one advantage it has now is, once again, is that all that gripper on the back. So every set where you see the frosted areas, that is gripper. This one does not have that QR code, I think because the tool was so small that they couldn't put it on there without obliterating some lines. So it does have the QR code on the instructions that came with it. And again, you can use your phone, use the camera on your phone. It'll take you to a web site that you can click on and go to a YouTube video. Or you can use a QR reader app on your phone, and you scan it, it'll go right to the YouTube video. And I did watch that yesterday because I always like to just look through them before I demo in case there's something I can learn, which there always is. So in the instructions, they've got all the different shapes you can use this for, including binding. So we're going to go through those today. You don't need to look at those little instructions, but the instructions come with the ruler. If you lose your instructions, you know you can always go to Creative Grids USA and download them again. So I guess the question, let me see if I can zoom in a little here, is why you might want to use this tool and when. Let me see. Oh, there we go. Let's zoom in. So I'm looking at, here we go, a flying geese unit. So any flying geese unit in a traditional pattern that's written with a rectangle and two squares, right? What they tell you to do is draw a line from corner to corner on the back of the square, place it on the rectangle, and sew on that line. And then you need to go back and trim a 1/4 inch from that line. So that's 2 times you're going to the cutting mat or the measuring. One is to draw a line, right? And then you sew, and then you're going to come back and cut. Well, the idea with the folded corner clipper is we're going to skip some of that. We're going to take our square, put it right on the rectangle. Now, instead of drawing anything, I'm going to put that ruler so it's right on there, and you can line up. So this is a 2.5 inch square, right? So there's a 2.5 inch line, and it comes up the edge, so you know you're lined up square. It's lined up perfectly here, and that black line goes corner to corner. Rather than drawing a line, this time I'm going to simply cut. Okay, now I'll take this to my sewing machine and sew a 1/4 inch, and then I can just press. So I've eliminated the line drawing part of this. And, right, we'll sew it and we'll get that. There's one unit they call a cornered rectangle, which would just be this. If you put one on the other side, you get your flying geese. Which doesn't seem so tedious, right? It's drawing and then cutting. But when you get to, like, this is a snowball, and you're going to have 4 little squares, 1 on each corner, okay? And I'm going to, in the traditional instructions, draw a line on each of those little squares, and then sew, and then come back, okay? Well, this way, once again, I'm going to take my folded corner clipper. It's at the 1 inch, right? 1 inch. It's all lined up perfectly. Trim that. And just go to my sewing machine and sew. Now, I find the ways to do it efficiently are either to have this cutting mat right next to my sewing machine so I can just slide it on over and sew. Or if I'm doing a bunch and I'm at my cutting station, which is not right next to my sewing machine, what I'll do is I'll cut a bunch of them and then get my 24-inch ruler, something longer than this, and just line them up on there, okay? And carry that whole ruler over to my sewing machine so I can sew them all. So if you see, if I do 4 little squares and a large one, I can make a snowball unit. And here's, once again, this is sort of like a half of a square and a square. I'm going to end up with a unit like this. I can draw that line, but once again, if I just go over, put a square onto the one corner, a small square on the corner of a large square, take that folded corner clipper, we're back at 2.5 on this one, right? Cut, take it to my sewing machine and sew that on. And I'll show you the quilt in a minute. It used a whole bunch of those rulers that I use this technique. The sizes, so we're going from 1 inch to 5 inches finished on this, and just a good size. Here's another block. Okay, this is sort of a, let me zoom out a little bit. I would call this a mindless quilt I was making. There's 200 of these rectangles, and they get a square in each corner, okay? And the finished block looks like this. And that's the whole quilt. There's 200 of these, and it's sort of a cool layout, and it's, like I said, mindless. But it got to be mind-numbing, because if there's 200 blocks and each has 4 little squares, that was 800 little squares. And before they put this tool out, I started with my marking tool and drawing all those lines. It was, number one, hard to find a tool that would draw nicely on this. I ended up, this one's got a white chalk pencil, but I tried mechanical pencil. Just with the dark blue, it was hard to see. Once this tool came out, so it's only about a year ago, I think, that Creative Threads started manufacturing this. It just sped it up. I'm down to my last, I think, 25 of these to do. So out of 200, that's not too bad, and that's a lot of lines I have not had to draw. So that's another shape we can use. Another thing you can use this for is binding. I had a request, someone said they needed a little reminder on how to bind. Okay, so here's binding strips. I happen to cut these at 2 1/4, which is what I tend to use rather than 2 1/2. So when you cut binding, you want, let's see, so here's 2¼ all right, so this is marked in every 1/4 inch increment here, so there's a dashed line here, so we know it's 2¼ what I really want to do is cut that angle here and then that there. Okay, if I had already cut the selvages off, I could have put this ruler right to the end, but I don't want the selvages in my binding strips. And some people get confused as how to sew binding strips together. So what I'm going to show you is when I did this, and if you're not sure like how to line them up, this is what I tend to do is take them and I look at them. This is how I want it to end up, right? So I just flip the right one over onto the left one. Now because I've already trimmed those at a 45-degree angle with a folded corner clipper and I've taken the dog ears off, I can just sew a 1/4 inch now from edge to edge, and that's going to line up perfectly. So it's a handy tool for that too. Let me show you a few quilts using this. All right, so a square and a square, that would be the 4 small squares, one in each corner of a larger square. Let's see, I'm going to try to do this. This is a quilt that was supposed to be hanging at Quilt Market in Island Boutique's booth. It's called Effervescence. So it's 3 sizes of snowballs. It's a fat quarter friendly quilt. Let me try to shut up. I love this fabric collection. It's called Venetian Marble. It will not be in shops until the fall. Like I said, it was just supposed to be presented to shop owners May Quilt Market, which was canceled. There's a pattern for it. So that's a new pattern I did. And it does have baby lap, twin, and queen sizes. I looked at the king size, but that would have been so many silly little snowballs. I didn't think anybody'd ever go there. But by the time you're cutting 1,000 little squares, I think it's too many. This is a fun size to make, so this is a lap size. But again, I did definitely use that folded corner clipper, even call for it on the pattern, just because it makes things quicker. Another pattern, oh, let me show you these. Anything Elizabeth Hartman does would be an awesome place to use this tool. So Fancy Foxes, can you see where there was a rectangle and there was a corner added to each end? I used this technique when I made, here's another of those foxes. This is in a folder pattern. But it was just so handy. This little nose here on the fox, you can see the same, well, this whole unit here you could have clipped off. And I pulled the Savannah. I mean, you can see, look at there. There's a great place to use this tool. They are all over in Elizabeth Hartman type of patterns, because she's always clipping off corners, okay? And we have a lot of those patterns in the shop, so if you're into Elizabeth Hartman, I'll get those online soon too. The other quilt I want to show you that I just made, I'm going to flip it around. So last time I said not only was I sewing masks, I was working on a new sample, because we just have to do that sometimes. And the fabrics and the patterns both call to me. So this is a pattern called Brightly. Let me show you that. By Cluck Cluck Sew. So it's layer cake friendly and fat quarter friendly. I just grabbed some fat quarters. This is from the Abbey Rose line by Robin Pickens from Motive Fabrics. So it's only one size in the pattern. It is 13 fat quarters for this. It's a lap size, so it's 60 by 72. And I had to lay it out here because I need to make sure all my colors are distributed nicely. But that's a perfect one for the folded corner clipper, because look at this unit here. She had you draw lines on the back of those 2 squares to make this star point. And rather than do that, I got my folded corner clipper out and just clipped like I showed you and took those to the machine. So I was able to make this in just truly probably 3 or 4 days. I got going one weekend. In between masks though, and in between being here putting things online. Someone asked, oh, I see. Yes, we have the folded corner clipper in stock. I can get that online too. There's so many things to go online. It is $15.49 if you're looking for it. Another question I had about binding. So let me show you. We're talking about binding and how to make it. And then someone asked, they were making my fab folder pattern. That's this one. And the little fox I showed you. But you bind it at the end. And so they had a question about how to do the binding. So I figured since we're showing with the folded corner clipper how to trim those edges to join binding pieces, I'd also show you a little bit about how to sew the binding on. So here's my binding strip. It happens to be batik, but usually, you could tell that it was folded wrong sides together. And I started sewing, okay? This is raw edges against raw edges on the top of the quilt. And I'll show you over here. So when I'm sewing, right, I'm going to sew down. And to make a mitered corner, what I really want to do is I lay it out like this. Can you see that? Yeah. Okay. I usually, when I get close, I do this, I finger press, right? Just at a 45 degree. And then I know I need to stop along that press line. If you can't see it, you could use your folded corner clipper again. Of course, I've lost it. This far into the stay-at-home, I'm losing it more often. I don't know about you. Okay, so I can take this. I'm just putting a straight line along the bottom of the quilt. And I can draw that little line in there. It's something I can see. So no matter if I'm doing a 1/4 inch or 3/8 of an inch, whatever I'm using, that's the line I want to stop on. I'm usually stitching a 1/4 inch, but some people do use a wider seam here. You're going to stop on that line, because when you stop on that line, you can take this whole thing, stop the stitching. You can either back stitch a little or just stitch in place to lock it. You take it out, you fold this back so that this bottom edge is lined up directly with the bottom edge of your quilt. And then you're going to fold it down. That fold matches here. And you just continue stitching a 1/4 inch right from the edge here, okay? What you end up with, I'll show you when it's done, is something, right, that look like this. Let me zoom in a little more, okay? And now when I take it and I turn the back, and I use Wonder Clips when I'm finishing the back, I'll clip it along there. I do this, right? I get, sorry guys, there you go. So Wonder Clips, and then I'm going to flip that. So I'm going to hand stitch this. So I get a nice mitered corner on the front and one again on the back, and they're sort of opposite each other, because on the front this one is on top, on the back this one's on top. So it keeps it sort of flat too. So that's how I do a binding. Joining the ends, that's a little that'll be another demo, how to join the ends. But I will say on the folders, joining the ends, because it's really stiff, and I had a machine quilt, so I did the binding on the top. I made sure it was a little bit wider. I folded it to the other side, right? Pressed it really well, and then I did a stitch in the ditch from the top to catch that. That one I simply, let me zoom out again a little bit. When I got to the two ends, I made sure the first one had a press to the, this was pressed, that was finished. And this one, when it came around, I had to put this one in there and do that, just do a little trimming. And then I had to stitch that closed by hand too. So that's not usually how I join ends on a quilt. Like I say, that's a demo for another day because it takes a little bit longer. So that's what's going on here today. So the folded corner clipper is the demo. It's at $15.49. Patterns that I'm talked about today are Brightly. Flip this around again. patterns I talked about were Brightly by Cluck Cluck Sew, which is that fun Abbey Road quilt I did. Effervescence, which is all the snowballs in 3 sizes. Both of those are fat quarter friendly. The Fab Folders, which also uses a Circle Savvy ruler. Let me show you that. For the pockets, where are we? There we go. Circle Savvy is for the pockets. That's a ruler for another day too. There's so much that we can demonstrate here. And binding. All right. The other thing I want to remind you of is this weekend is Zootropolis, the Saturday Sampler. We're going to do curbside pickup again. So those are ready. If you've got your sheep done, bring that to show us so you can get your hedgehog at no cost. If you've already paid for the limited edition, you're going to get the flamingo and the cow. And if you know the poem, you'll know why I made a purple cow. Then what else is going on? So you can pick it up Friday or Saturday, 12 to 4:30. I just want to do a 4:30 cutoff, even though we're open till 5, just to give us a little bit of time to get things run out to the curb there. And then tomorrow is Ready, Set, Sold with Tiffany. So we know we're going to have some fabrics for $1 a yard, 5-yard cuts, whatever we can get. Plus we'll find something else that'll be, who knows what goes on. So once we start with Ready, Set, Sold. Yeah, Tiffany and Julie have a good time with that one. So unless there's any questions, I see, all right. I see Tiffany saying I made one for her. Huh. She must be talking about a fab folder. Okay, so thanks for joining me. Like I said, if you have any suggestions of tools you want to see or techniques or whatever, send them to me. I'm open to suggestions. There's always more we can learn and more to do. But otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow right here. Bye, guys.